Are we flirty or do we just know how to have a conversation? Welcome back to After Our Happy Hour. We are your chaotic but cathartic co-host. I'm Vicky.
I'm Jamila.
I'm Sharon.
Well, we wanted to use this episode, or we wanted to talk about this topic in this episode because there was one time Jamila hung out with a group of people, and it just so happened that there was a man in that group.
A boy.
That
Not a man.
A boy, not a man, was talking to Jamila, and then did he say it to you or did he ask like a friend?
He asked other people in our group.
Oh, okay. He started asking people, was like, oh, is Jamila like interested in me, or like, is she flirting or something like that? And then Jamila texted us and was like, what the fuck? I was just trying to have a good conversation with this man, and she was
Boy.
like, not interested at all. Boy, sorry. Scrap all my man. He is a boy. So then we realized that like as girls, we've probably had that happen to us a lot of times because we're like, oh, we just want to talk. We don't really like you like that. So we wanted to kind of address that in this episode.
To give even a little bit more background context, it was my first time meeting him, and it was me and another friend, and the friend knew the boy. So then he just kind of came over, and I introduced myself, and then I was just making conversation, like, oh, what do you do? Like, how old are you? Just, making general conversation. So it's my first time meeting him. And as any normal person does on the first time meeting someone, you want to maybe get to know them or just have a conversation. I didn't want him to be like, oh, Jamila and this other person is like excluding me, whatever. I want to be like inclusive. Then the next day was when someone told me, multiple people told me, was like, oh, he thought you were trying to get at him and stuff. I was like, bruh.
That's such an ick. That's an ick. Anyways, we kind of talked about it, but if we want to be very specific, is have we ever experienced a man that think we like them, but really we're just trying to hold a conversation?
I think that was my only one. Unless it has happened and no one has told me about it.
Yeah, I don't think it was as direct as hearing from the friend who heard it from the source that they thought I was hitting on them, but there's definitely been an instance where it was like a house party or like a casual kickback, and obviously mutuals of mutuals come over and you get to know people because it's an intimate, you're not at a bar or club, you're at someone's house, and so you're like, oh, how do you know this group, or like, who are you, blah blah blah. And then I guess there was like this one party, and I did kind of have a conversation with him for like 90% of the night. So like I guess I could see how other people took it as like oh, so like you and whatever, and I was just like, oh no, I was just yeah. And then the entire group was like, oh, so you and I was like, oh, what? No,
I feel like this also boils down to like, can guys and girls be friends, or is there always something more?
Okay, but I can't necessarily blame them because I feel like if I saw you guys talking to one guy for the entire night, I would probably also just like egg you guys on and be like, I'm so what? You know what I'm saying? So it's fine.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna say that I have never been specifically told like that, but I always think when I'm having a convo with this man or boy that I'm like, oh my god, do they think that I'm like trying to hit on them if I ask too many questions? So then there's certain conversations where I'm like, I could ask more, but I'm not gonna, just to like prevent that from happening. I've definitely felt that before.
True.
I feel like I was that bitch who like seemed too flirty in middle school to high school, and then college happened and I turned into a bitch.
Oh.
Because that's when I like pulled the most men in my life ever. And every time I look back to pictures, I'm like, for why? And it was probably because I would talk to hella people all the time. But nowadays, that doesn't happen. I think I just give off very bitchy vibes nowadays.
No, you don't, Vicky. You want to in your head, or you think about it in your head, but realistically, you don't give off that vibes.
Oh.
If anything, especially when
sometimes
you're drunk.
I don't hold conversations.
No, especially when you're drunk,
is a different story.
you're so talkative. Not only are you really talkative when you're drunk, but you're really engaged in the conversation. And I feel like if you're talking to a random guy at a bar or like in a setting like that, they will for sure think you're trying to flirt with them because of how engaged you are.
That's why I don't get drunk. Okay, well, why do men think girls like them so easily? Why do you think that men think that?
Think what?
Like, when we talk to them, they're like, oh my god, does she like me? Or, oh my god, is she trying to flirt with me? Because do you feel like when you talk to men and they are a good conversationalist, that's your first thought where you're like, oh my god, they're trying to flirt with me?
No.
I think it depends on the setting. Like, let's just say it was at a bar or it was at a party setting. I feel like first thought might be a little bit like that.
You know, I'm paranoid when literally my first thought just now was like, I think they're interested in me. I think they're trying to murder me. Or like, it's like a negative connotation where it's like, oh my God, are they going to drug me? Or oh my God, are they going to kidnap me? But I don't think I would act on it. I'd just be a very on the fence, which then leads to no conversation.
Okay, maybe I'm not talking about in like a party setting because I feel like in those settings you can kind of tell maybe if someone's more so potentially interested in you. But if I'm meeting someone normally and I can tell that they ask good questions and can hold conversation, I just think, oh, they're good at holding conversation, not
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, they like me.
Yeah.
But then that would make me interested in them because that's very rare in a man.
But then then that's probably the other way too. A guy can think the same
Really? You
thing.
think so?
Yeah.
But then I also have to argue that like girls aren't as straightforward when we're interested in people. Like that's how we show our interest to men is like we talk to them a lot and like we kind of pay attention to them more versus a man is more likely to be more straightforward in their flirtiness. Like there's maybe like 8 out of 10 times if a man is flirting with me, I know and I can tell and I have a specific sentence that they've said where I'm like, that's how you showed you were interested.
What's the sentence?
Like they'd be like, oh my God, you look so cute right now.
Ew. Sorry.
Like right, exactly. Like there's no way you're not interested. I wouldn't say that to any random person unless I'm trying to hit on them, and I would never say that because it's icky. But
I feel like no one has ever, other than like middle school or like high school kind of thing, but I feel like no one has ever said those words to me as like a serious flirting way.
oh,
yeah, I don't think people say shit like that. They just do something.
Yeah.
they do what?
Like they'll make a physical move.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've actually never had a man do a physical move. I would be very thrown off if that was his first thing to do to show that he was interested. I'd be like, why are you touching me? That's mean. I wouldn't say that if I was interested, but if I wasn't.
Where we're going with this was
Why do men act like any good conversation means that we're flirting?
okay, I feel like maybe or maybe that's like a more generalized concept, but I don't think that's how all guys think.
Do you think so? I think all men think like that.
No, I guess I can, pat myself on the back. I'll take it as a compliment, but I feel like there's been a couple instances, not even if they're interested in me, but just like I've heard like, oh, you ask really good questions or you know how to like really facilitate conversation. And then I'll always just be like, doesn't everybody though? I can never take it as like, oh, thank you, really. It's always like well, duh. How else do you get to know people?
Yeah.
No, but I also agree. I feel like both of you guys are good conversationalists or good conversationalists to general public because you guys always ask beyond surface level questions. I feel like for me, when I'm talking to people, I'm still very surface level. It's still very like, oh, like what do you do? We like find similar hobbies, things like that. But I feel like you guys sometimes dig a little deeper. Or at least I know for Vicky, you could have like an hour conversation with a complete stranger when you're drunk.
But I don't know if Jam knows this, but every time we think about like having a drunk conversation with someone and getting really deep, I think about when I was in Seattle with Sharon, and then I met this rock climber, and it was just me and him sitting outside because we were trying to get fresh air, and somehow I got that conversation to get to him telling me about how his friend passed away the week before, and I asked him about his parents and how they felt about it. It was like
this
such
is what
a
I
deep
mean.
conversation, and I met him like 15 minutes ago.
See, that's what I mean. You guys just unintentionally somehow just lead to topics that let people open up about.
Is that sending the wrong signal?
I feel like it's not really sending any wrong signals. That's just the way that you guys conversate versus I feel like for me, yeah, I know how to hold a conversation, but it's more just like a fun kind of conversation. I never guide a direction to something so deep. In such a short time. I feel like the way that people will walk out, like if they just met us and they have a conversation, it'll probably be like, oh wow, I felt like me and Vicky or me and Sharon could be good friends. Like it just felt like such a good conversation or something like that. I feel like people walk out of it with me, it's like, oh, Jam's like a really fun person. Like I would love to, like party with her some more.
I guess.
So I feel like that's also like a different type of conversationalist.
It is.
I mean, if I'm talking actual relationships, that's definitely what would have like being able to have conversation is essentially what kickstarted our relationship versus the other stuff was like more so physical or alcohol.
I wonder if we'll ever start anything without alcohol.
I did.
I did.
Really?
All of mine started without alcohol.
I thought you guys, it was like there's something there, but it's solidified because of alcohol.
That's Sharon.
Oh.
But who was
Okay.
yours, Jam? That was not.
All of mine weren't relationship or dating. None of mine were ever kick-started or like alcohol pushed it into motion. It was it was already in motion.
That's my goal. My next relationship is not going to start with alcohol. Anyways,
Yeah,
off topic.
anyway, what the
See, wait, sorry. I was just saying, for someone who loves drinking the most of us three, I don't depend on alcohol.
Yeah. I don't think we answered the question, but like,
Oh. Which one was it? Was it
why do men think girls? Yeah. I think I wrote down this question because, like, in a previous episode, I said something about how men and their guy friends don't hold deep conversations, and then they, like, seek girls to do that because their girls are known to be the more empathetic and, like, the therapists of the two genders, basically. And so then anytime that they seek that comfort from a woman, they automatically are just like, oh my god, she's the one, even though we're just talking, versus they don't have those conversations with men. Wow, that's why I wrote psychoanalyzing men.
Yeah, no, I think it goes both ways, because maybe from the receiving end of men, if they don't get that intimate conversation much going from their guy friends and they get it from a girl, I can see why they will take that as like oh, I'm interested in her because we're talking about not just surface level things. But I also do see it on the flip side of like a girl, because maybe quote unquote what Vicky said of like men don't really talk about that, or like those deeper questions with their friends. So if they ask those questions that we like to be asked to us, then we would also be interested. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like it's like a two-way thing, where
Yeah.
if someone is good at holding conversation, you naturally maybe more so are interested than what else besides like physical, right?
Yeah.
So
But I also wonder if it's like the men audacity to think that, because it would cross my mind that I'm like, oh, maybe he's interested, but I would doubt myself. I'd be like, oh my god, he's just having a good conversation. Like, why would I automatically assume that she likes me? But like, some men really just go with that thought and they're like, no, she's flirting, and like, I think she's interested and stuff like that. I'm just like, the men confidence that I cannot have.
yeah, I feel like the only people I felt like, oh, they might be interested based on conversation were the actual two relationships I've had, because the other ones just were like, it started because it was physical and then it kept going.
Yeah. I think I would need like an actual sign. I can't go off of guessing, because then I'll always second guess myself. You need to be as straightforward can be.
Yeah, probably like if a guy were to say something that was pretty forward to Vicky, Vicky would be like, I don't
That's not true. No, based off of experience, as something as simple as like, oh, I think you look cute right now. You know, that's like pretty straightforward.
No, it goes back to that conversation of, if you're not into him or you don't think he's attractive, then you'll be like, oh, what the fuck? But if you're like, there's a
Yeah,
potential,
but I
then you'll
would-
be like, oh, okay.
But then I would know that he's trying to hit on me. And then I'd be like, oh my god, time to backtrack, or oh my god, like this could be something. You know, like I wouldn't be like, he's just being a friend and calling me cute.
Okay, fair. You're right.
Can you do subtleness, Jam? Do you need an obvious sign? I feel like you don't need an obvious
I don't think she
sign.
does. I feel like Jen would be able to read it.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, I think he's interested. I'll make a move.
The thing is, I feel like I can't, or I don't know, because it just doesn't happen or hasn't happened at like a party or like whatever. Usually the way I'm meeting people is either through friends, like mutuals, or is through dating apps. So there's obviously something, like I already know. What's like a subtle kind of thing?
I feel like talking to you every day is like subtle. Because then you could second guess yourself and be like, well, what if they just talk to everybody every day? Like, we're fun. Or like here and there, they do something really nice, but it's not like super consistent. Like offering a service to kind of like show sincerity, but then it's so easy to pass off as like, oh, they're just being a really good friend. Or like randomly asking you out for dinners here and there. Like, would you automatically assume that he's trying to hit on you if that's what he does?
I feel like it's so hard to say, because I feel like there's not really anyone that I started off as friends and then it progressed into something more.
Yeah, I feel like if you start off as friends, it's harder to break that barrier.
Yeah, so I feel like with all those things, it's always like, oh, it's just like me and a friend. Like, it never progresses. So yeah, I don't know, man.
The next question is, do you think people have an ulterior motive when they have good questions or good conversations with people?
I think some people do.
I think so too.
I'm sure there are guys and girls out there who, when they're talking to the opposite gender, how to explain this? I feel like there's a type of person who, even though they might not be interested, but they'll never close their door at the possibility of it. So they're always kind of prepared to have something happen. The thing is, I feel like when they're talking to guys or when they just meet a guy, they might not be interested in them. They might not want to have anything to go, but then they'll always just have a good conversation or just be really interested and kind of almost like hooking them in. And then perhaps there's like something that happens later on.
It's like collecting their cards and waiting for the right time to play it.
See, though, I'm going to play devil's advocate because I think it might be easy to see it from that perspective of like, oh, they're just playing their cards and scoping out potential possibilities for the future. So they're kind of like playing the game versus I feel like maybe they're just generally good at talking to anybody because they don't discriminate against anybody. And that might be a better approach than the next question that we have is like, have you ever had better conversations with people or like initiate conversation better because you think they're cute? Or like you're actually interested. So you kind of like already premeditate who you're interested in and select them to have conversation with. Does that make sense? So I feel like it really depends if this said person is actually having good conversation with everybody because they generally can, or because they're like, well, you never know if something's gonna happen. So let me keep my options open, you know? So like I don't know how like they actually are.
I like to think that if you know how to have a good conversation, you approach everything with the mindset of like, oh, I'm gonna have a good conversation. And it just so happens that like people start liking you more because you have that capability. And then like it seems like you just have a bunch of people, you know?
I'm sure people do have ulterior motives though.
Yeah. I feel like it's like almost similar to like, oh, when you meet someone who you know has a big network, you're more than likely to be like, oh, I'm going to want to stay friends with this person versus like someone who's a complete stranger and you don't know anything about them because it's like a personal gain. If you know this person and like you guys connect well, then it connects you to a bigger circle versus like if you meet someone you don't really know much about, like, are you going to entertain the convo that much if it does nothing for you? Unless you're like, oh, I want to have a new friend.
I have a question. Okay. How do you guys flirt?
I was gonna ask something like that too. I was gonna be like, okay, so are we flirty or do you not have conversation?
No, okay. The reason why I asked that was because during my study abroad, the guy that I was actually interested in, towards the end, when we were just talking, he's like, oh, I actually thought you were interested in another person in our group. And the reason he said that was because I would, I don't know, like maybe like talk to more comfortably or I don't know. And then I think that's when I realized, oh, if I'm around someone that I like have more feelings or interested in, I think I get a little bit more awkward and my conversation actually isn't as good.
Yeah, that's on our list. It's like, if you think I'm flirting with you, I probably hate you or like don't like you at all. But if I'm painfully awkward, then I probably have a huge crush on you.
Yeah.
I think I pay attention to that person way more than I would a normal person. But then I think I fall in that category where it's hard to tell because like with my friends, I'm also as caring. And then if I like you, you just fall into that group. Because if you were a stranger, I literally could not care two fucks about you, unfortunately. But like if I liked you, I just like pay more attention to you.
I've been told that I laugh way more at something that's probably not as funny.
I can see that.
It's definitely easy to quote unquote flirt with somebody you don't care about. But then I was gonna say I don't flirt. Like I don't initiate flirting. I only flirt if I get a sign first.
Actually, I feel like I've seen Sharon unintentionally flirt, or I just seen her quote unquote in action a little bit. Like, not that she's made a move, but I feel like she has this laugh too.
I haven't seen neither of you guys flirt.
I can't remember. I just remember it was like at party settings. And at times, I just, it's not like bad or anything. It's just that, like, you have this laugh that I've seen where you're talking to guys. Versus when you're just talking to like friends.
Okay, I wasn't gonna say laughing as a part of it. It's more like eye contact. I feel like I can tell if someone's interested based off eye contact, and then if I'm actually down, then I'll flirt. But then I won't initiate. I won't be like, oh, he's cute. Let me go talk to him. What about you, Vicky? How do you flirt?
I think I just pay more attention to them and like I'm within their vicinity more.
Dude, I really think is conversation for Vicky.
Honestly, yeah, because like I don't talk to people, especially if we're meeting at a party. I'm more likely to just sit there and like watch. But if it just so happens that like there's this person that I'm interested in and then we start a conversation, I'm more likely to hold on to that conversation than be like, because normally if I don't like you or like I just feel like I don't want to have a conversation, I'd be like, oh, I gotta go do something, or I excuse myself from that conversation. But if I'm interested, I will like stay there and have that conversation. So it's probably right if you see me talk to the same man that whole night, that I'm probably interested.
Or he's a really interesting person. It could be either one.
Or you're just really drunk.
Yeah, it depends on how drunk I am. But if I'm like semi-sober and I'm willing to carry a conversation with this man, then I probably am interested.
Yeah. Okay, would you guys rather flirt by yourself, like just you and the person, or you guys would flirt with your friend? Or it works better when you have like a partner, you kind of tag team it.
Oh my god, Jam likes it with someone there, huh? I already know it.
Wait, I'm confused. What do you mean?
Do you want like a wing woman there with you, or would you rather just a one-on-one with the man?
It's not even a wing woman. It's just I feel like having a person there is so much easier to just start the conversation going.
Jam's
or I just
made to
bounce
be an
off.
entertainer. She needs an audience.
No, or I just bounce off of people. I feel when it's just my brain, sometimes I'm like, oh, like what do I say and stuff? But let's just say like Sharon or Vicky says something, now I'm bouncing off of that. And I feel like that's sometimes attractive to a guy when like you and your friend have like a really good friendship or chemistry going on, and things just feel more natural.
Oh, you're saying it's easier to flirt with somebody when there's other people there.
Or I would prefer to have someone or like a close friend, like you guys, to kind of like kick things off.
See, I think I'll be bad in both situations. I'm really good via text.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, Sharon's really good with text.
Yeah. I feel like I've been told, oh, you are different in person than you are through text because like you give off more signs or like flirtiness through text than you do in person. Because in person, I'm kind of like shy.
But you're also good with your replies. Like I don't think I'm good with my replies, so I always turn to you, be like, oh, what should I say?
Yeah, for like Hinge, especially Hinge when it's like it's definitely kind of flirtatious banter that you're supposed to have. So easy to help Jam.
Yeah, I think I'd rather do it by myself. But
can
I
see that.
like don't flirt, so I think it's just like having a good conversation, and I can do that with one-on-ones better.
Okay, well, on that note, kind of similar, we talked about it. Have you purposefully held better conversations with more attractive people?
I mean, if I think they're attractive, yeah.
Yeah.
With girls, yeah, not with boys.
What?
I think with men, I'm more like scared. I'd much rather just admire from afar than strike the convo. Versus like girls, I'm just like, oh my god, you're so pretty. I want to be your friend. And I'll like have really good conversations with them. How am I not gay? Sorry.
I think I like when in a new group or whatever, or especially a party, I kind of make my rounds like kind of meeting people.
Yeah, I feel like before, maybe in college, especially like parties or something, you walk into a room, you kind of scan the crowd. And if you're down to, get to know somebody, I feel like I've beelined for like, oh, I'd be down to have a conversation with this person. Or like, I feel like in now setting, it's more like I go off of first impression and vibes a lot. Or like if I walk into a room, I kind of immediately know if I'm going to vibe with you or not, just like at a friendly level. So then I would put more effort into the people I'm getting vibes from than those that I'm like probably sure that we're not going to get along like that. You know what I'm saying? Instead of being super open to just talking to everybody. So like, I feel like that's something that I could work on too. You never know how a conversation is going to go, so just have it with everybody.
And then our last question is, how do we hold a conversation or just have a good conversation with someone?
I feel like that's a tough question because you have to like want to know this person. Like you can't really force it. Like sometimes you just don't care and you don't care. But some people actually do have a problem with, even if they care, they feel awkward. So I guess we can address that.
I think just have a general list of questions always helps. Some generic, broad questions. I feel like we're still at the age of where we could ask where you guys went to go to college to see if you guys like similar backgrounds. I also just like asking about music because I feel like music is just really easy to connect on. Like if you guys have similar genres, you guys could talk about artists. And then also they're probably working now, so I kind of just ask like what they do. So I feel like having a general list of questions, and then usually there's follow up, and then you just continue the
ask
conversation.
Questions.
Yeah.
It's not like you go down the list, but like you ask one question, like, oh, what do you do for work? Do you like it? How'd you get into it? Is this what you always wanted to do? Like there's so many sub questions that you can ask that like can lead into a bigger conversation. You just don't run down the list. Listen to comprehend, don't listen to talk.
I don't know if we answered much, but I think we maybe we can be flirty, but we know how to hold conversation.
That is how I flirt, by a good conversation.
I think last thing for me is physical touch. I think I'm definitely a little bit more, I'll add a little bit more like physical gestures if I'm like actually interested.
Like you'll be the one to initiate it.
I feel like it's pretty easy. Like, let's say you have a conversation and then you just kind of like inch a little closer or, just small touches. I feel like even if you just like standing across from them versus standing right next to them.
Yeah. I feel like people might get the wrong impression.
Wait, hold on. Can I guess? I feel like from what I remember, it's like maybe the laugh and the subtle kind of like touch on the shoulder. It's like the like.
But like I don't mean it, but like someone might take it like that.
Well, that's our conversation on are we flirty or can we just hold our conversation? I think in conclusion, we just know how to hold a conversation for the most part. I actually don't really know how to rap. Like, what else I say? Well, that's the end of our episode. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.